So every day for the last 52 years you've been taking pictures. How difficult did you find it to pick 5 to sum up your lifetime as a photographer?
I found it bloody difficult because there was so much over the years of so many diverse subjects that I couldn't think of one particular one that epitomised what I did to sum up my career, really. Oh, the Old Bailey bomb, my God. That was a day of bomb scare. There was a God almighty explosion that ricocheted from all the buildings, all the high-rise buildings all around. So you haven't the first clue which direction this blast had come from. Had a great thing about this bloodied gentleman who turned out to be a barrister called James Crispy. Ended up as a High Court judge, but after this picture he'd been admitted to hospital, but one day Bert in the front hall of the Sun at that time, he rang up to the photographer's room and said, "Here Roger, there's a box down here for you, it's come from old Elvino's." And anyway, he said, "Shall I bring it up?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll be great." And he brought up this box and we opened it. And it had a bottle of sherry, a bottle of port, a bottle of red wine, white wine, and also a collection of cheeses. And with it was a note, and sadly I've lost this note or mislaid it. And it was from this barrister, James Crispin, and it said, "Dear Roger, thank you for the best portrait of me ever taken." James Crispin. And I just thought it was a treasure to have that all the way from Elvino's. Anyway,
brilliant.
We all had a glass, including the front doorman Bert. He had a glass too. But I had the paper stitched up basically with page 1, centre page spread, and quite a few other fillers too.
Roger, what is it that's so special about that picture?
Basically, it's the balance of the composition. I just think, I don't call it lucky. I had the right lens on the right time. It's an 85mm. There are other pictures of the same situation. I remember by a couple of agency guys, but they were all on wide angles, which they were quite poignant, but they didn't have the same forceful atmosphere. And I was lucky in the fact that it was beautifully framed by 2 guys who, in a tragic situation, with the poor man with his wing collar, bloodied wing collar in the middle, bandaged round his head, just made it a very, very strong image. 19 years on the Sun was a total waste of time. At least I did produce things like this and lots of other pictures, Mick Jagger and George Best playing football in Mauritius. Lots of good images that basically you forgot all the crap that you were given and you did some quality things.
Roger, tell me what it was like joining the Daily Mail in 1965.
Well, to get a job in Fleet Street was something to behold, but I'd come with my college portfolio into Fleet Street, and at that stage, or in those days, the main paper, the best paper to work for, would have been the Daily Express. And the Daily Express it used countless good quality pictures and had a sea of really top quality photographers. And I just aimed to Fleet Street, and this glass building, this Art Deco glass building, very hunchy looking building that was, it was the star of Fleet Street. And I went into the front door and met the commissionaires and said, could I see the picture editor? And they contacted the picture desk, and the picture editor was very busy, he was up to his eyes, so he sent down this photographer who turned out to be the chief photographer, a guy called Terry Fincher. And Terry Fincher came down and studied my little book of photographs that I was quite proud of, and he was very impressed with this and said, chances of you getting a job on the Daily Express are minimal, because we have a sea of 38 photographers working for the Daily Express, plus an equal amount of freelancers who are waiting for the top ones to pop their clogs and take their place. But he suggested that I should go down to another newspaper, a rival newspaper called the Daily Mail. I trundled down there with my college portfolio and went to the front door and asked for to go and see somebody on the picture desk, and they ushered me up to the second floor, where I was put into a little glass Wendy house with the picture desk secretary, a lady called Anne Craddock, and my college portfolio went all around the building. It went, started off at the picture desk, the art desk, and went to the news desk, and it went to the editor, and then it trundled around the building with a great rate of knots. The place, and all of a sudden they offered me a job, which I was in the building for 2 hours, and all of a sudden I came out with a job. An offer of £26 a week for, it was the start of my career.
Were you surprised?
Gobsmacked.
Can you remember the first assignment that you did for the Daily Mail?
The first one down to Brighton to photograph a sports day at St Dunstan's Home for the War Blind. And one of the things was a thing called the 100-yard dash, which is basically a race from A to B, and the finish line would be racing to the sound of a loud hailer, a bleeping sound for a loud hailer. So you had this one official standing there with his megaphone. Lots of the soldiers or blind soldiers would be running towards this sound, and they were going all over the place. So we were just starting off, and it would disappear to the left or they would disappear to the right, and very few came anywhere near my camera. But there was one guy who just had this wonderful athletic stance, and it turned out that he was an officer, a blind officer who was blinded in Malaya in 1952. There's this man just running straight towards, very, very close to the camera, very, very close to the megaphone.
And what was the reaction when you took that back to the Daily Mail?
In those days, you didn't see your film went to the darkroom, and then the contacts would come back down, and the picture editor would mark them up and send them off for printing. And the picture of the blind athlete was a stunner, and it went. It was printed big, and it went straight into the paper as a thing called Vision, which was a half-page picture with a brief caption, or brief story.
Working for The Guardian and being based in Brighton, what are some of the favourite?
They're countless, they really are. I've been doing it now with The Guardian since I left The Sun in 1989. I worked for The Observer for a little bit, and then Eamon McCabe took over as picture editor on The Guardian, or asked me to come up with my own quirky ideas. Suited me down to the ground, but I'm very, very lucky. I live in a town full of artists and full of quirky people, and I've got this bloody great beach which has become my studio. So it's only 200 yards down the road, and I could physically go and take my subjects onto my studio, be it in the sea or on the beach or anywhere that's idiotic to take pictures.
You seem to have the knack of talking people into doing these ridiculous things, Roger.
They always moan. Everyone I photograph, there's always like, oh God, it's him again, he's going to take so long, oh dear, oh Lord. But they're all up for it because they know that there is going to be something a bit amusing at the end of it. So I am well known to being a pest, and I rather enjoy being a pest, quite frankly.
But it's paid off over the years, hasn't it?
Yes, and people have come up with the goods and produced images that I am very, very proud of.
Tell me about another classic which you took at the Pavilion.
They had a lawn in front of it. Well, it has a lawn in front of it. And in the lawn is a 12-foot by 6-foot little ornamental pond. And I thought I would use that as a picture where I could reflect the pavilion. So I had an upside down and right way up pavilion by putting the camera right down by the water. But there was a slight problem with the fact that the pond was full of McDonald wrappers and discarded debris all over the place. So I ended up going to a fishing shop, and I bought a fishing net and ended up scooping out all this debris to clear the pond so I could put the camera right down by the water, take the pentaprism off and reflect it perfectly.
And how did The Guardian use that one, Roger?
I had a printer at that stage called Larry Bartlett. Every time the picture appeared in the paper, it was either upside down or there was some quirky difference about it. I remember we had a picture and display in Claridge's Hotel, and this voice came from the other side of the hotel exhibition, and shouted over, said, "Roger, they've got the thing on the wall upside down again." So anyway, it appeared in the paper quite a few times, but quite a few times not the right way up. Well, I was doing a feature on hot weather, even though this picture isn't taken in hot weather, but I knew that Sergeant Stone, who is the Punch and Judy man in Brighton, was the Punch and Judy man then, he was renowned for doing his Punch and Judy act wearing nothing but his birthday suit. And he would be appearing in the buff, and that was the whole idea of photographing him on the beach, with the back of the tent just showing his naked bum. And we were about to set off doing pictures of bare asses and things like that. Then all of a sudden this guy came down the beach with his 2 children. Younger one got a bit fed up and went off to play with stones and things like that. the older one got into the act with Sergeant Stone and was reacting to the Punch and Judy and the whole act and getting more and more and more excited. Bang, I got a good image.
And when you took it, Roger, did you know or did you realise that it was going to be a real classic?
No, not at all. I knew I got a good picture, but I didn't realise how much the reaction was going to be.
So, behind that lovely tent, Punch and Judy, is a man stark naked, pulling the strings and making the kids laugh.
He is, but he had a reputation for being quite extravagant and quite... but he's a gay guy, yeah, a very likeable gay guy, an alcoholic, and just had this bizarre reputation of being a hellraiser. There was one occasion where he had wars with the seafront officer who always walked down the beach wearing a blue raincoat and a peaked cap. And anyway, Sergeant Stone, the Punch and Judy man, Mike Stone, didn't like the seafront officer at all, and they had words on several occasions. But on this one occasion, he had a sprinkling of children in front of him, and the seafront officer was walking down the beach in the direction of the Punch and Judy tent, and all of a sudden, Sergeant Stone, in Punch and Judy voice, said, or Mr. Punch's voice said, "Hold up, children, there goes a wanker in the flat cap. Let's tell the wanker in the flat cap to fuck off. Fuck off, Mr. Flat Cap." Anyway, the seafront officer heard all this, and rather than come in and grabbing the drunken Punch and Judy man out of the tent, he remonstrated with the characters on the screen as such, and so he was up against Punch, Judy, the policeman, the crocodile, the sausages, the whole lot, and all of a sudden Punch is going, "Fuck off, Mr. Flat Cap." Anyway, the result was he was banned from In Between the Piers for 6 months.
Roger, tell me about the book. You're working on a new book, Out of the Ordinary.
Anyway, I linked in with a graphics designer man called Alex Bamford. I asked him if he'd help me to sort of sort pictures one from another, and anyway we produced a collection of basically 300 pictures that I am quite proud of.
And you've got a well-respected photo editor.
Well, the best picture editor I've ever worked with, a guy called Eamon McCabe, I've asked him if he would picture editor my book, because a photographer is the worst person to pick his own pictures.
The final selection done?
No, we're still trimming it down from the 300 down to 150.
Any idea when it'll be out, Roger?
Well, hopefully next year at some stage, but I'm biding my time because I want a quality product.
And your dog's waiting for a dinner.
We haven't got a dog.
You have now.